Hi everyone, it's Mary and I have a new tutorial for you today. This is the Among Us Crewmate pattern. So this is made with a large machine. It's a pretty easy pattern to do. I will show you how to do that today. This crewmate measures about 11 inches tall. It comes out to be about 8 inches wide. So let's get started in showing you how to make this Among Us Crewmate. So what you'll need is a large machine. You'll need some yarn, and I'm using Big Twist in deep red, sky blue, white, and black. You'll also need some polyfil, your normal tools, and some waste yarn. Okay, let's get started. So to begin, you will need 2 tubes that are 60 rows each. Start by cinching the ends of the tube to remove the slack that is on the edges. This will make it easier for our next step. Then what I like to do is align the tails in the center of the tubes. Then flip one tube over so it's on top of the other tube, and we're going to seam down the one edge. Mattress stitch these two sides together starting at one end, and we'll work our way down to the other end, but we will stop about 18 stitches from the end, and that end will become the feet or the legs of this crewmate. So at this point, I'm going to count up 18 stitches from the bottom and stop my seaming there. Once I'm done with that, I'll go ahead and flip it over to the other side and seam the other side down to the 18 stitches mark as well. So now that I'm done with seaming the two sides together, I need to seam the legs. And to do that, we're going to use the same yarn that we used from our seaming. We're going to go to the opposite side of where our seam is coming out. So my seam right now is coming out this front side here. I'm just going to loosen up these couple of stitches to make it easier. I'll insert my needle on the other side of the leg, and I want to pick up the two previous stitches. Okay, this is going to help us make sure that we don't have a hole when we go to cinch these closed. So just find the last two stitches and go through those two again. And then when we come to this other side here, we'll go through those two previous stitches. And now we can resume our normal mattress stitch, going back and forth from side to side until we get to the end of the leg. Once that is done, I'll just flip it over and do the exact same thing on the other leg. When that's done, we can pull on the seam tails and cinch up our seams. And we can just verify there's no holes. Then what I like to do is stretch the piece a little bit. To finish this piece up, or the legs up, we're going to cinch the ends closed, pulling on the tube yarn, and then I'll use that same yarn to pick up a couple of stitches just to even out that shape. Then tie the two ends together. I'll bury them after we stuff the body. And then we'll just repeat it for the other leg. So cinch it closed, pick up a couple of stitches, and secure everything together. So you should have something looks like this. Now we're ready to stuff the body. So go ahead and stuff the body with polyfill, making it as full as you want. One thing I wanted to point out is when I am filling, I'm actually putting the stuffing in the middle section, and then I'm using my hand like this and kind of pushing that filling out to the edges. Okay, this is what helps me not get lumps. So by placing it in the middle and pushing it to the outside, it smooths things out. So once you have it filled, we'll secure the seam tails just by placing a knot. Don't pull too hard or you'll pull the top inside. Add some more polyfill And when you have it the way you want it, we'll go ahead, start to cinch the top together. I usually add a little bit more polyfill. Once it's all stuffed, we have the top cinched together. I'll use one of the tails, pick up all of the stitches going around the opening. This is what is going to help pull these two tubes together to make it look like one tube. And then once you're done with that, you can go ahead and cinch it closed and secure the ends and bury the tails. I'll go down to the legs, bury those tails as well. And the body is finished. So let's do the mask. The mask is made on your large machine as well. If you're using a 46 needles machine, do 24 rows. If you're doing a 48 needles machine, do 26 rows. And again, I'll just cinch these partway closed to remove the slack. Fold it in half and then seam the sides together from end to end. When you're finished seaming the sides, go ahead and cinch the ends closed on both ends and bury those tails. To place it on the body, to start, what we'll do is fold the mask in half, and I want to find the center of each side. So I'll just fold it in half and stick a stitch marker there. And then I'll flip it over and mark the opposite side as well. These two stitch markers will be lined up with the center seam on the body. I actually forgot to add the little reflection to the mask, so we'll go ahead and do that now by just taking some white yarn and making some stitches in the area that you want the reflection. Now we can seam this to the body. I'll start by taking a stitch off the center of the body, and then I'll pick up the stitch, the center of the mask, and then continue to pick up a stitch off the body and then a stitch off the mask, going all the way around the mask. When you get to the top of the mask, make sure that the stitch marker is aligned with the center of the body. And then you can continue to go the remainder of the way around until you get back to the beginning. As you make your way around, hold it upright to make sure that you like how it's looking and it's not crooked. I did take out a few stitches because I didn't like how it was looking, and I just redid that. But it's easier to do as you go versus when you're completed. Once you're happy with how it looks, you can secure those tails and then bury them. And you should have a mask that looks like this. So let's do the backpack. The backpack is made on your large machine. You'll want to start with waste yarn and end with waste yarn. You'll want to do 35 rows. We'll slip stitch the ends closed. I'm not going to go into detail on how to do that, but I will link in the corner here to my video on how to slip stitch the ends closed if you're not familiar with that. Once the ends are slip stitch closed, we can go ahead, remove the waste yarn, and secure these two tails. Now we'll start to make some box corners. To start, fold one edge up to the other edge, and then we'll pinch this corner here with our finger and hold it in place, and then pull the knitting down. And this is where we are going to make our seam, right here in that joint. So let me show you that again. So I fold one edge up to the other, pinch that corner, and then pull the knitting down, and then kind of pinch it again and align all four of these sides. And then seam this area right there. So I have to turn it in order to do this right-handed. To seam this together, I'll pick up 2 bars on one side and 2 legs on the other side. And repeat this for a total of 4 stitches on the top and 4 stitches on the bottom. When you've completed the 4 stitches, pull on the tail to cinch it together, weave my way back to the other side, secure those tails, and we're ready to move on to the next corner. Repeat this process of creating a boxed corner in each corner of the backpack. When you're finished with all 4 corners, you should have something that kind of looks like this. It's kind of like a little box tray. This is the back side, this is the front side. Now we're ready to sew it to the body. To do that, I want to find the center point of the backpack. So I've got my stitch markers here, and what I will do is fold the side seams together like so. So right at that center point, I will add the stitch marker. And I will also do this on the other side. So this is going to be the top and the bottom of the backpack. And one thing to mention, our knitting is going from top to bottom, which matches the knitting of the body. So align the 2 stitch markers with the center line or the seam of our body. The other thing that I found helpful was to find out how many column of stitches I have from the side or the corner where the box corner is to the center of the backpack. I find it easiest to count over that same number of columns on the body. Now, looks like my knitting is a little crooked here, so I was just trying to straighten it out. Once I find that column of stitches, I'm going to place a stitch marker there while I am seaming this to the body. I will align my corner with these columns of stitches that I'm marking on the body. And I'm just holding it to see if it looks centered to me. I think I was a little off on the one side, but now I'm ready to start seaming to the body. And very similar to how we seamed the mask to the body, I'm going to start at the center of the bottom and work my way around. This is where my first corner is, so I'm just going to follow this column of stitches down just to make sure that where I stopped my stitching from the bottom side going to the side is lined up properly. And then follow that same column of stitches all the way up to the top corner. When I reach the center of the top, I'll just make sure that the stitch marker lines up with my center seam, and then continue around the end. Just before we finish up that bottom seam, I'll go ahead and stuff the backpack with polyfil. And if it looks good, you can secure the tails together and then bury them. So I'll just look this over real quick before I secure the ends and bury those tails, just to make sure that I like how it looks. Once you're finished with that, your backpack is done. There's just one more last little detail that we need to do on the mask. And we'll just add a shadow going around the mask. I'm taking a long piece of black yarn and I'm doubling it over. Just weave your way from corner to corner, making that black outline going all the way around the mask. When I'm done, I'll tie a knot and bury those tails. The very last thing that I like to do is use a lint roller and get off any extra polyfill residue. And there's your finished Among Us Crewmate. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. and subscribe to my channel for more knitting machine patterns and tutorials. Thanks for watching.